Okay, so good morning to everybody. Happy Monday. Let's
Morning,
have
Ash. It's a happy Monday, is it?
happy and
Monday was
tired
supposed to be
Monday,
a
I
shit
think it
day.
is. Yeah, it's the time of time of year that you just need a bit of a break. Actually, the rest of society's got a bit of a break, haven't they, because of Easter?
Yes, that's true. Well,
You
we've
know,
got a short week this week for most people, and then a short week next week for most people.
yeah, yeah, 2 weeks, 2 weeks of relaxing.
Sounds okay, doesn't it?
Yeah, I don't think it's too bad actually. I
All
wouldn't
right, should we
mind.
start?
Yeah, well, let's start now, and then we'll worry about sort of taking a break later on down the line. So,
I kind of feel like a holiday. I feel like the markets aren't terribly exciting for me at the moment, so I'm kind of
no, they're
trying to.
not. And do you know what's really interesting is that we're getting into that kind of sell in May, walk away time. And speaking specifically of the FTSE does tend to take a bit of a break sometime around now. And yeah, it kind of takes a little bit of a break up until, or it can do. I mean, it's I say sometime around now. We do get a couple of weeks, but sell in May, walk away usually kicks in maybe the second week in May or something would be a normal time, and then that can kind of last right up until July. So we could get 6 weeks of just very low volatility, and it can make trading a little bit tricky. But the interesting thing, in fact, there's two interesting things really right now. One is that when we look at this market, we've had a where are we at? We've had a huge run. So on the dailies here, this is since the start of January. This is the first day in January, right here. That was the first. That was the 31st. So January opens here.
They haven't looked back since, have they?
No, I mean it's up. It is up 730 odd pips, and considering the FTSE's at 7,300 ish, it's basically up 10%.
Mm.
So 10% in the matter of a quarter is quite high. You don't really expect the FTSE to be 10%, or if the FTSE's gone up by 10% by the end of the year, that is special. So, or that's that'd be a pretty stellar year. So to be up 10% in the matter of 3 months is, I think, a little bit of a concern, if I'm honest. I think it's gone a little bit too fast, too far too fast. Firstly, and also we are kind of starting to hit that period, because we compare this to the S&P, which is an important barometer for the FTSE 100 as well. And the S&P is almost back to its all-time high up here that
Mm.
it reached back in September. And we can see what happened at that particular point. When we kind of hit near these prices before, it's the market just it cannoned really to the downside from that particular price level, and the fact that we're up here so fast makes me kind of wonder whether it can sustain. When you think that this particular rally, it wasn't even down here actually, but that particular point to that particular point was like pretty much like half a year. So this has done it in half the time, and it wasn't, and this point here wasn't even as low. So you'd have to come right the way back.
Yeah, it's really flown, isn't it? Wow.
Yeah, to this point here. So it's almost a year and a half before we kind of like hit the same kind of price points from 0 to 100, if you like. From low to high. It took a long time. So it does suggest that the move to the upside could be a shade unsustainable at this particular speed, but you never know. And the question really is what's going to change it. I think there's some GDP figures from China this week, which are going to be fascinating, and they're going to be watched pretty heavily. Earnings season has started as well, so that might just curb some of the enthusiasm here. But as I say, it may not, and I think everybody's looking for a bit of a correction of some sort, whether it's a recession. I think is now fairly doubtful, but I think a 10% correction would be more than sorry, not a 10% correction, a 1 to 3% correction would be more than palatable and still be really positive, you know. So this point here still looks like a great area to look for a buy, and that is going to be about 1.5% correction to get down there. I wouldn't be keen up here. You know, it's not so much that it can't go higher because the FTSE's got a little bit to run. We just saw the S&P has got a little bit to run to its high, so it could get up here. But I think at some point before we maybe break through the all-time highs, I think we're going to get something of a correction. So yeah, I'm not too keen on the market right now. Plus the fact, you know, we do have that kind of May time frame coming up. June as well tends to be a really stinking month for the FTSE. So it may just maybe that sell in May June time comes a little bit earlier this year. Oh, and the other thing to mention actually is that Japan has got a 10-day holiday, which is going to account for about 6 trading days, I think, coming up at the end of April, which really could put the cat amongst the pigeons when it comes down to investor confidence. Because who's going to want to hold stocks for a 10-day period, not knowing what the potential volatility could be? And that's a long time, you know, to hold on to something with a market which is a little bit toppy and news events that could be moving it, you know, from day to day. I think there could be possibly some profit taking just on the back of that as well.
Okay, lots of things to consider there, really, isn't it?
I think so. Yeah, I think so, and I think that the things to consider are that we're probably looking for a little bit of an easing rather than the strengthening at this point.
Yep. Okay. Well, Monday's normally my day just to get a feel for what may be ahead in terms of the market. It's also a day to reflect on what happened pretty much Thursday and Friday since I left the market, which is pretty much the case for me most weeks and was the case this week. What we saw last week was, of course, and I'm just having a look now at the Forex Factory. Should I take the screen? I guess I should.
Yeah.
Let me see how I'm going to do that. Right. 1, 2,
I've given you the screen.
So I've got it?
You got it, yeah.
Okay. Then let's go here and here. So going back to last Thursday, really, where we saw what was, I guess, the culmination of a pretty boring old week, news-wise. And we got these numbers from the States, which were pretty decent, to be fair, in particular the PPI number. That was quite stellar. And the CPI figures out of China on Thursday were pretty much as forecast. So you got to be thinking maybe dollar strength in there somewhere. And then the trade balance for China was unbelievable. If you have a look at previous and forecast versus what it hit.
Oh yeah, I was going to check that actually. Yeah, where are we at with that?
Man, $221 billion versus $2 billion forecast. That's a miss in any person's language. What does that mean?
Hold on, where are you seeing that?
I'm seeing that.
Oh, we're still not seeing your screen, mate.
Okay. Let me see if I can fix that. Can I fix that? Release it. Go. I know what's going on. I've got to get this off this monitor. Okay. That should be better. Yeah, there, and there. With any luck, that should change things. 1, 2, 3, go. And
was that reported on Friday, was it?
Beg pardon?
That was on Friday. I missed that one.
The trade balance?
Yeah.
China's trade balance?
Yeah.
There it is there. $221 billion versus a forecast of $2 billion. But
right.
Don't get too carried away with that because it's not really below par. Well, it's only just if it is below par, really.
Yeah, yeah.
Around about the mean, but Why they were forecasting such a weak number, I've got no idea.
Wow.
Yeah. But yeah, that's a miss by anyone's standard. And
Mr. the upside.
Big pardon?
Mr. the upside.
Yes.
Yeah.
And that may have something to do with why the Aussie was doing well, has done well since.
Yeah.
Well.
Yeah.
So that's kind of, I don't know what Carney said on Friday. I don't even know who he was speaking to.
I'm not sure, and this is the interesting thing, isn't it? That you know, everybody seems to be talking about a weakness in the market from some data that he had last year, but there seems to be no follow through whatsoever from the numbers last year. You know, the JP Morgan's earnings were pretty good. We got a decent China trade balance. I think tomorrow we have GDP from China, which I think is going to be the interesting and highly anticipated and watched number. But yeah, just nothing is easing this market back again. Oh, maybe it's not tomorrow actually. Maybe it's Wednesday. Is it?
It's overnight, Tuesday, Wednesday.
It's overnight. Yeah, I see. 3 o'clock in the morning. Yeah, so it's going to be Wednesday earliest before this market seems to be getting any kind of catalyst to move to the downside, unless there is just some you know, profit taking for the run up to Easter, which is this Sunday.
Well, there's another thing, you know, Easter we go into that break, and in and out this week, I think, is the go. Get in early and get out early.
I think so. Yeah, I mean, it's, you know, people during Easter. I'm just going to check trading days during Easter. You know, are much more likely to kind of ease back on their positions, and we do actually see, yeah, the Easter time does tend to be sort of the worst few days in the you know, with the FTSE.
But in terms of the moves and shakers, the pound, the euro, and the dollar, there's really not a lot about. But average earnings, as you say, tomorrow on the pound, but on CPI, I guess, on the pound. But that's, we've got all the manufacturing figures coming out on Thursday. I guess the market will hang around Thursday night, but I don't know. I don't see anything that's really going to change my point of view on what's going on or what's not going on. So let me take a look at some charts and start with the euro, as I normally do. And you were speaking earlier about the euro and its rally. Look, surprised me, to be fair, that it rallied before it found support after we hit the monthly pivot. So we really didn't get a kick off the monthly pivot. I actually ended short there on the smaller, on the 4-hour chart, I think. Oh no, the daily chart last week. That's right. Had a tight TP1, so didn't do any damage. But there you can see the tail of the tape, and after 3 attempts to go through the monthly pivot, it smashed through it, and now looks like it wants to take another look at maybe certainly the trade line or trend line, and maybe even 113.60. So that's kind of where we'd be looking for the euro sometime this week. But before we do that, of course, we've got a very, very tight pivot formation. I think it's about a 13 pip spread between the daily pivot and the weekly pivot, and the monthly pivot sandwiched in between. So that's going to be very much an attractive scenario for me. If I look and find something that indicates there's a retracement going to happen here, then I'd even like to be trading that. I think maybe back to even this level here, maybe back to the weekly pivot, monthly pivot combo. So back here somewhere would be quite a reasonable retracement point for me, and that's probably what I'll be looking for. Maybe it's a bit early for thinking that today, but on the smaller time frame, certainly I'd be thinking on daily pivot test. If that's tradable, it will probably come from one of these two lines, preferably that one, but may even come from that one. So, and it may come from the where they converge. What I would like to see is probably price be unable to take out the high of the day thus far and continue its consolidation here, or consolidate here rather, then get back underneath this area, maybe even to here, and retest the confluence here. That would be awesome, and would give me a reason to think short to the daily pivot. It's not a lot of reward on offer there, so maybe we find an entry here somewhere, risk of about, I don't know, 10 pips, something like that. The reward's only going to be 13. So not a great incentive, to be absolutely frank, but we'll see what happens. And that's kind of what I've got in my mind. Price down here, maybe even down here later in the day, later in the week, and then look for the bounce long. But there's no trade for me here just yet, that's for sure. The Aussie, as I said, that China news, although the China news on Friday got it back to tours with that rally that started on Wednesday, but the Thursday candle wasn't terribly buoyant for the Aussie, and interestingly, we haven't been able to have a close really beyond this of the high of the previous month. So that's kind of keeping price in a bit of a bind here, and that's what we're seeing. Close above the trend line may be significant. We'll see, I guess, today how keen the buyers are at this point. But once again, we've got pivots below us, the daily and the weekly very, very close together. A little bit skipped away from the monthly, though, it must be said. And if I'm looking at this chart, I'm seeing a bullish engulfing bar, a higher low, and a higher high. And I'm looking for a retracement here, I think, again, to go long. That's what I'm seeing here anyway. Trading that short is going to be far more challenging than it was, or it will be on the euro, I would suspect. For reason being that we are now very, very close to the pivots. Interesting retest of the backside, or top side, if you like, of this trend line, which is this one here. I'm kind of thinking there may be a bounce already there, but no, I wouldn't want to be trading into these highs, I don't think, without some sort of retracement. So again, a little bit tough to call in terms of, okay, let's go trading now. But again, we've got resistance here. We haven't really got a support trend line, so I think maybe, same as the euro. We can get up to here, find the resistance, don't take out the high of the day, get back underneath the trend line, retest it. If you've got enough room for profit before the daily pivot, and maybe target the weekly pivot as your get out point, that may be a trade on the Aussie. So up here, consolidate, underneath, retest, short, but you've got to take profit at the daily pivot. And trading through the low of the day is not one of my favourite things to do either. So it's not really something that I'm looking forward to challenging. And hence, that's the general lack of interest is continuing here by the looks of things. And until I've got something that's clear and breaking out of these noisy zones, if you like, really a case of, why aren't I on holidays already? This is, of course, cable, and we were expecting probably something a little bit better than this from cable. We've had, on this chart, the 4 hour, let's go the daily first, actually. You can see what a mess it is here, and the inability of the cross to get back above this monthly pivot once it had been broken. We've had many attempts. This is a daily chart, 1, 2, 3 solid attempts, and probably a few more that you can throw in there as well that have failed. Yet, we can't get further south either. So it's really a tight consolidation area that we're looking at. And it's kind of bounded by the monthly pivots and around about the 130 level, which is around about here somewhere. Around about there. So that's kind of the range that we've found ourselves in. In fact, it's probably a bit tighter than that. You can probably go and sneak it up to 130.50. So it's a range of only, let's say, 70 odd pips, which is quite tight for the pound. And I really don't know which way this is going to break, to be fair. It's a tough one to call. We should be in well, I won't say non-Brexit zone, but we're in a kind of a hiatus, if you like, a little bit of a hole here for us to be able to take advantage of no Brexit situation right now, anyway. But I don't see that as a clear case for either the Bulls or the Bears here right now. It's very much a tight little situation, and I don't know what's going to change it. Any ideas?
Well, I suppose just something a bit more concrete. Labour and the Conservatives are talking about this customs union a little bit more in depth now. The Labour have always been very keen on a customs union, but the Tories, they threw down their red lines very, very early. But Theresa May seems to be a bit more keen on potentially bending now a little bit. So it could be maybe some announcement that they've come to some arrangement on the customs union. Could be some arrangement on possibly even a second referendum. I'm not sure. Interestingly, I was in Wales over the weekend, and Wales was very much a vote leave constituency or country. But the people I was speaking to were just saying that they do actually feel a bit duped by the Leave campaign's claims, and would be more than happy now to probably vote for a Remain in if there was another referendum. So I think that's quite interesting that people have probably, the country's mood has probably shifted, and if there was another vote that came in, I think that there would be a different outcome now. I think people are just tired of it. They're starting to recognise that there's just no way out. There's no Brexit which is actually net positive.
No, there's nothing that's attractive. No, it doesn't seem to be. But I quite, and I said a couple of weeks ago, I'm quite surprised that sort of attitude that you just described has not been rife within the UK. Okay, we've now got all these facts on the table that we didn't have before the vote. I don't want to go anymore, but that doesn't seem to be the general consensus, does it? But from what you're saying, that maybe is starting to turn.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, interestingly, I'm just reading an article on what is likely to be moving this markets, and there is just a one paragraph which is saying the dearth of volatility in FX markets is evidence that some investors are looking for further signs of a pickup in global growth before adding to their positions. Just as China bulls become increasingly confident growth has turned the corner, data on Wednesday will probably show that the world's second largest economy expanded at a slower pace of 6.3% in the first quarter. So even so, there is a solid balance of payments generally and decent carry in emerging markets. So yeah, it looks like there are some people that are a little bit more cautious and just looking for a little bit more evidence that we're going, and I, that it looks from what I'm reading here that Wednesday announcement could be the announcement that people are actually waiting on now. I think a miss to the downside on that may well see some stocks start to ease off a little bit, but a move to the upside significantly will probably be a decent enough driver to keep this rally going.
Okay, I'm therefore not non-committal, I suppose, on the pound. I'll see what happens, but at the moment it doesn't look like it's an attractive currency pair to be trading.
No.
Aussie yen. Why have I got that chart up? I was looking for that to do something last week, go short, and it's done quite the reverse. As I said, Friday's Chinese news was probably the catalyst for the rally on the Aussie pairs. Not such a bad thing at the end of the day, but it just puts any idea I had of going short here probably on hold for the short term, unless we get, of course, some resistance area up here, which may be the case, which will allow me to get into the market prior to where I would normally do that, which is down here somewhere. So I'm still of the bear brigade, if you like, but I've got to see something that says this is going to turn around and come back into this range. Once it does, I'll definitely be looking for a retest of the top of this range and then look to trade it short. but nothing there at the moment for me. Aussie CAD is similar, but in a different kind of a sphere or pattern, if you like. I'll put it that way. This range for mine is a channel rather than a rectangle, and we're nowhere near the top of that yet. So we've challenged the horizontal level, which is substantial, I must say, around about the 95.50 mark, and we've tried to get through it, unable to do so yet. But I think once we do, we may well be headed for this area here, around about the 96.38 as I've got it there on that red line. If that were to happen quickly, which it could well, I'd be looking in the first instance for a retracement. Again, back to the pivot, same old story. 4-hour chart may give me a little look at that. Don't think I'd like to trade off the daily pivot, but maybe a retracement down to the weekly pivot might get me a little bit interested. So no trade here yet, but that's kind of what I'll be looking forward to do. Then get up to the top of that range, or the other way to look at that, of course, is this horizontal level holds at 95.60. Maybe we get a right shoulder form, and this starts to turn around and comes back towards the bottom of the channel. So again, really non-committal on that at the moment, but can see a story for both. This one, which both surprised and disappointed me, really. I should still be in this trade that I got into a couple of weeks ago, as it turns out, but I'm not. The reason I'm not is I had my trailing stop too tight, and didn't even get this chunk, much less the rest of it. So a little bit disappointing on that front. I did expect this to happen, but I really wasn't expecting this leg to be so fierce and, in fact, aggressive, very aggressive move on dollar yen to the upside. Smashed through the 112 mark. When I say smashed through it, it got through it, but it's there that we've had a little bit of a hiccup in terms of momentum. That's not surprising after the run from around about 110.70 odd up to 112. So you've got to be thinking consolidation or retracement here. I'd be looking for a retest of the trend line that's been broken. I wouldn't like to trade that, certainly not against the momentum, but that would be my first thoughts, and that's probably where I'd look for my first entry into the market if I was to look for one at all. Either it's going to be a retest here for me, or it's going to be a break, and if it's a break, then I may be able to start thinking, all right, let's go back and challenge this high, then look for shorts. But this one's not easy either. It has broken through with some momentum, and we've got to wait now to see what the market thinks. A little bit of tweezer top sitting there now on the 4-hour chart, but that's not enough to trade it. I need to see something a little better than that. So get underneath here and retest maybe the confluence of weekly pivot and the trend line. That's going to get me interested, but nothing short of that to go short, I would think. Do a couple more. Euro yen. Again, one of those that we traded last week, could only manage a TP1. Fortunately got a TP1 before it smashed out the other side, and certainly looks to be in a bullish frame of mind from here. That said, again, we're at a resistance level, so same modus operandi always for me. When I get a break of a trend line, I'm looking for one of two things. I'm looking for a retest of it, or I'm looking for consolidation above it and a re-entry below it. Either one is fine, but I don't do anything until that happens. So on the daily chart, there's nothing there for me. If I'm looking for a retest, I'm very, very close to that line. So again, very, very difficult to trade. So the only real thing I can do here is wait for this either to test here, then I can make a call on it, or get back underneath here and then look for a retest of the bottom side of it. It's very, very common, and that's exactly what's fronting me or confronting me on Euro Yen, not dissimilar to a lot of the crosses I've already looked at. Euro Pound, look, I am keen still to trade this short. I don't really have any change of mind on that. And once again, we are at the top of this rectangular channel, or I call it a rectangular channel. You call it what you want. It's a consolidation or a box, whatever. And again, same old, same old. I'd be looking for a lower high here to trade it short. But there's one thing that I will also be looking for here, and that is a third false break of the top of this rectangle. If I were to see a third false break and even take out this high, I would then adopt a very aggressive bearish attitude. So as soon as I hit resistance anywhere up here, I'd be looking to short the market. I've got to wait a fair while for that, this being the daily chart, I would imagine. So in the meantime, I'll be looking for this to peel off the top. If it doesn't give me a lower high, then I'd look for it to break out. If it does give me a lower high, I'd be happy to trade it short and wait for that third break to the top side for some other time. But again, not ready yet. I have to wait for those scenarios to play out before I can look to trade. I suppose I could look at EuroCAD. Really not interested in pound at the moment. As I said, EuroCAD's interesting in that we are now having a third attempt to break through this trend line. And that's always going to be an interesting point. We'll be looking for a bounce or a break here, of course. And I think for mine, let me go to the daily chart. Yeah, it's neither trending nor ranging, really, is it? It's kind of either or, and that makes it tough. You've got to say it's in a channel, and you've probably got to say that. I don't think you've got to say anything other than that. You've got equal highs and almost equal lows. In this section of the chart, you're trending long. This section of the chart, you're trending short. Where are we trending? I think I've just got to draw the channel in and follow the channel. That's probably where I'm headed with this one. It's not perfect by any stretch. I'd kind of be okay with that. So let's use these lines and see what happens here. If we break and retest, then okay, we haven't got a very long distance to travel before we hit resistance. But if we break, and the same as the other pairs I've just described, can get back underneath that area and retest it, then it's a short for me. But gee, mate, there's not a lot of commitment from me here, I've got to say. It's just wait and see. And that's very similar to what how we left the end of last week.
Yeah. Well, to be honest, there's not a great deal of commitment in the FTSE either as we start the day here. We are. I just got. Yeah, the Chinese news that you say on Friday did see some. Does look like it did see some positivity as that was released, but that's definitely eased. I mean, we got this is Friday's data. I'm just also hearing about a report about the Chinese US trade war, which seems to be somewhere near closure. They seem to be sort of getting to some sort of agreement on the back of that. Interesting that hasn't happened as yet. So it's not really kind of. Yeah, it's just not. We're just not able to use it as a driver, really. And this is what we've had with the FTSE. Just a bit of a lack of commitment so far this morning. It's just held up here on the daily pivot. And I kind of want to see what's going to happen here. The bounce is the obvious move, but as I say, the market is so overcooked up here that trying to take a long in the FTSE 100 at this particular point, I think, would be a little bit too dangerous for my particular taste. I'm just going to show you the 5-minute chart here because it's the only little bit of detail that we have so far. We haven't had our first 15-minute bar as yet, but when we look at the 5-minute bar, this is the first. Actually, yes, this is the first 5-minute bar of the day, which shows that there is some negativity. That's a pretty wild bar, really, to start the day with. When you consider that that's a 5-minute period, and it's already a decent 10 pips shove to the downside. It needs to hold under this daily pivot, really. It really needs to get under the weekly before it starts. But when I was looking at the pattern that we have in the FTSE, really, we've got something of an ascending triangle. This is the low area down here, and this is the kind of high area up here. So we're kind of looking at something of an ascending triangle. So really, if this does break to the downside, and I was kind of trying to do some measured moves on this, the break to the downside does again really point us into the area that I would really like to start picking this up. Bring this into a shorter term time frame, just so we can see longer term time frame, sorry, so we can see this a little bit better. That brings us down to this point here. That's 72.41, which is a little bit lower. This is the point that I'd like to get into it, 72.73. So we're probably around about 100 pips away from where I want to even start considering trading this to the upside. But the 72.42, a little bit no man's landy. There's a little gap here, very, very small. I'm not even sure if it's fully in existence, but little gap here, which would suggest that that could be an area to try and look for a long. Certainly the monthly pivot is another possibility, but that's starting to get a little bit too low to then suggest that we would necessarily jettison forward from that point, but it could happen. So I do want the easing. It is going to depend on the catalyst as well, what brings us down to this point, because if what brings us down here is maybe the dispute between China and America hasn't been resolved, I would not be looking for the long, but just a little bit of weakening in GDP, as long as it's not anything too crucial from China, easing us back to the downside would be enough. I also think the holiday period also coming up would be enough. That all would suggest that it's not a bad place to still look for the long. But yeah, we're just waiting, mate. As you said, I find that I've just had a look through all the charts, and I have to say the euro is fascinating. I'm not exactly sure where the confidence in the euro is coming from, but I just looked through all the euro charts, and here we see it against the yen over Friday, Thursday, Friday, and today we're still on this rally. It's probably maybe near some highs up here, but euro yen it plumped to the upside. Dollar yen the same thing. Really from Friday it started to move to the upside. Another nice test of the breakout zone, and the daily pivot would suggest that again that we're stretching our legs back to the upside on the euro yen. On the euro dollar, pound dollar. Euro pound. Maybe not so easy to read this one. It's a little bit boxy, so I'm not too sure if I want to trade that. This one again, Euro CAD is again stepping to the upside. You can really see it's probably nicely illustrated through the daily pivot. But there was one that I just saw. What was it? Maybe it was the Euro Aussie. Maybe not so much. Maybe it was the Euro CAD. No, I just had the Euro CAD. Euro Kiwi, was it? No, Euro Kiwi. No, maybe it was the Euro Sing. Yeah, it was the Euro Sing. It's a really, really nice boost to the upside in Euro Sing. So there's certainly some confidence out there right now. I don't know whether this may well turn around, but coming off the back of last week, the euro did really get a kick, didn't it? And I'm not sure where the confidence is coming from, but there's certainly some traders that are quite happy to look for some euro strength here.
Yeah, I think it's like I probably said, from a technical point of view, if you go to the euro dollar and the monthly chart, or even the weekly chart, but the monthly chart is fine, you'll see that it's kind of do or die here.
Yes, you did mention that, didn't you? Yeah.
If this goes lower than where it currently, well, pretty much the price it's at,
yeah,
around 1360 level, that's the kind of line in the sand I always use. If it were to break certainly below the low of last month's candle, we're in strife, definite strife. But until we get back above 113.60, I think we're still entitled to be bearish. But,
yeah.
Once we do get above 113.60, it's a different story. But the real tail of the tape here for me is if we were to go short here, look out parity again.
Yeah, yeah.
And that really, to me, is the only logical reason I can see why the euro is rallying.
Yeah, and maybe also the fact that no deal Brexit seems to be further and further away, and to be fair, the UK was due to leave the EU on Friday, and the fact that that hasn't happened, and we now move into this, I suppose, slightly uncertain period, but maybe with that little bit of certainty that no deal is a distant potential memory, then that would also probably help the euro. The euro is not so dangerous here, and I think a no-deal Brexit would have affected both currencies. Probably the pound worse, but the fact that we're not getting that is probably something to do with the euro rally. Maybe there's just a bit of relief out there with the euro.
Look, mate, we all know it's a very resilient currency because there's been enormous pressure in the past and survived it. We've heard Eurozone's dead, it's gone. We won't have the euro, won't exist in 10 years' time or 5 years, 2 years' time, whatever.
Yeah.
It's still, I won't say it's a extremely buoyant position to be in right now, but it's still there. It doesn't go away.
No, absolutely right.
Coming at you.
Yeah, absolutely right, mate. Yeah, you're absolutely right. It is incredibly resilient, isn't it? And I guess when it comes down to it, nobody really wants to take that punt. Why would you take a punt that something's going to collapse before it actually has happened? Because people know that the central banks will do everything in their power to keep things afloat. I'll tell you what else. Sorry, mate.
I don't know, mate. To be fair, I really don't know. It's something that continues to amaze me, but it's definitely a bankable situation. When it hits support, it rallies. When it hits resistance, it dives. It's a very bankable currency.
Yes, it is. Do you know the other one I find quite interesting is the dollar, because when we kind of look across the board, and this is Aussie dollar that moved to the upside. This is dollar CAD, which moved to the downside. Dollar Swissy also was, certainly today it's moving to the downside. But when I looked at gold was taking a bit of a hit. Now, where are you? There you are. Gold was taking a bit of a hit, and it kind of questions whether the rally that we've seen against the dollar is much of a dollar story because of what's happened with gold. Gold on Thursday really did start to considerably move to the downside. Friday, it was a bit of an easing, and today we have this easing. And I certainly would say that we're in a buying zone here. We're in a buy zone with gold, and I'm sure there's going to be a lot of people interested in somewhere around about the 1281, 1282 level. And I'd be one of them. I'd be quite happy to look for some buying opportunities here with gold, but it may be that gold is also hitting a bit of a is getting a bit rangy here, and we could be looking at possibly a pattern that looks a little bit like this as well, which looks like a descending triangle. So a break either way is probably going to provide a pretty explosive move in price. And my preference would probably still be to the upside, especially if there are those whispers that the Fed is much more likely to ease back on interest rates rather than raise them. Then gold right back up to something like 1365. There is a measured move that would take us up to 1365. Coming down, the measured move takes us back to, well, probably around about this area, maybe even a little bit lower, but somewhere in the 1230 area. But I quite like gold for some upside as this eases to the downside. But again, we need to hear what that story is about gold and about the dollar, and try and get a decent assumption what might drive the Fed in one direction to another. I know the IMF are effectively telling central banks not to be too hasty and raise it with their raising of interest rates. Whether the dollar is going to be left on hold rather than eased back down again is a bit of a question. Donald Trump's come right back out with some verbal bullets for the Fed, saying that the stock market could have been 5,000 to 10,000 pips higher if if they hadn't intervened and started to raise interest rates, and that he believes that it's too early, and he's appointed another couple of people, I think, in the Fed as well, and that's the thing, isn't it? The president ultimately decides who's going to be in the central bank there.
Oh yeah, he doesn't hold back if he wants to change that. His man, Jerome Powell's in there right now.
Yeah.
If he wants to change that, he'll certainly change it.
Yeah.
He'll say, not good enough, you're fired.
Yeah.
He's very good at it. He's drained the swamps. He's done exactly as he said he would do. You cannot say for 1 second that he's not a man that lives up to his word, because he's certainly that.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, if enemy thought there was some danger to the stock market being Donald Trump, he's certainly managing to avoid that particular tag, because he puts pressure on when things aren't going too well.
Yeah, and if you value your job, you may listen to him.
Yes, you better listen. Yeah,
I don't suggest that's the morally right stance to take, but it is what it is. And going back to gold, the gold chart is I totally get where you're coming from bullish wise, but I think there's actually some short side to be had before that happens. You were saying levels deeper than what is currently the case would be the better buy zone, and I agree with that. And when I look at the weekly chart, I see that big bearish engulfing bar. I see that big reversal bar beside it, or that precedes it. I see the double top. I see the second bearish engulfing bar, and I see last week's candle as a big rejection bar. So I can absolutely see that this is a crucial level right now, where the lows of those two indecisive bars are. If that level was to go, that level is around about let's say 1280. If 1280 fails, then I think there's a nice little pip run to the downside.
Yeah, I agree with you, mate. I agree with you, and that's the thing. The measured move on that would see us a lot lower. I think this trend line might hold it up for a little while as well, if it was to come down too much further. And also, it's going to depend on timing. If it holds in this area for a while, that trend line does start to become a bit more prevalent. That does take us into June, so that's going to be holding for a long time. But yeah, I make you right on that. I think there is a chance that the gold could break and break fairly aggressively back down again.
I'm not saying it's going down to 1100 or anything like that, but
yeah,
even if you pull a fib on it, from the bottom, pull a fib from the bottom, and let's look at a 61.8 retracement gets us down to 1233.
Yes, it does.
Retracement gets us down to 1250-ish. So,
I have to say, this 38 starts to become pretty attractive actually when you do put a fib, because of these lows here. 1275 looks like it's going to struggle to get through that level, I think, at first time of asking at least.
Yeah, I agree with that, but that's why the caveat: if it goes that level, then I think there's a nice little bit of downside there left before it does rally. And certainly the market seems to be a little bit risk on at the moment.
Well, this is the interesting thing. I mean, certainly, today might be just changing things around a little bit. We're just seeing that the FTSE 100. Now, this is the interesting thing I was going to say about the weekly chart on the FTSE. You just bringing up the weekly with gold with gold there. Yeah, this hanging man does suggest as well, if we take out these lows with the FTSE, that we could see that downside really start to kick into play, and then maybe we do actually get down to 72.20, but the hanging man from last week is not a particularly bullish sign here. So yeah, there might just be a little bit of risk off coming back into play. Let's just have a quick look at the dollar yen as well. Well, dollar yen's at a resistance point, isn't it? And you know, there is kind of carry trade aspects to this as well. With the dollar yen, you know, the yen always seems to be a pretty good prospect for the carry trade, and that might play some sort of part. I don't fully subscribe to the carry trade because I've never really traded it before, and even though I understand the mechanics of it, it's really something for kind of like, you know, long-term investors with a lot of money will be playing stuff like that. But maybe that could have an aspect that might be a level of resistance which could see at least a pause here. Oil as well, I thought was another really interesting market as that moved to the upside. That appears now to be creating some sort of lower high. When we look at oil again, look at the bar on oil. You know, look at where we are in the bar on oil. That certainly looks like a shooting star up here, doesn't it? And again, oil, the same thing that we saw with the FTSE, where it's gone. What's that? 220. It's 22. So it's really up about 30%. I mean, that's a hell of a move in such a short period of time. So all of these markets, they're going to be twitchy, aren't they? And as I say, we're kind of headed into that long Easter period, and summer well, May certainly doesn't feel too far away. So
yeah, you pull a fib on that one, you'll like what you see there too. I think from the top. I mean,
oh, from this point.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely, yes. Oh, brilliant, mate. Yeah, absolutely. That would suggest some downside here with oil. Nice, nice spot there. Yeah, really good spot.
Nice horizontal level too.
Yeah, so that would suggest that we get some easing back again with oil. And again, you know, I think with all of this, it's all going to be about timing. You know, what's the timing issue that we have, and it doesn't so far appear that there's any data which pushes this market down with any kind of conviction. But you know, 10
as well.
What's that, mate?
We've got OPEC as well this week, I think.
OPEC as well, so there could be some announcements. I do think there is some evidence and some reason for some profit taking. I suppose that's really the point that I'm making, is that we are at these highs, and it may not be a specific catalyst that sees us move to the downside. It might just be because of the break. You know, do people still want to continue to hold? I know there was one firm in the States that was saying that they were going to open up the Japanese stock market effectively, so people could trade it over the break. But let's have a quick look at the Japanese price action of the day as well, which we're not seeing too much in the way of downside. But you know, this is today's bar exploded to the upside, maybe taking a little bit of a break. Sorry, I was actually going to show you that oil on the 4-hour chart looks to me like we might just have hit a bit of a lower high here. So got to get through this level. But if oil does take this level out now, then I wonder if we do just start seeing that just drift again back to something like 61.80 or something like that. I wonder whether that might be on this week as well, especially as you say with an OPEC announcement. It could be that that there's just a little bit of profit taking with the markets where they have kind of overblown. 61% on a fib is another significant area, and an OPEC announcement might just see this market drift back down here as people await that particular call. So you know, it looks like the pause is about to happen. That's really what I'd like to see. It doesn't leave us much to do, because I don't really want to play a pause because of the of how bullish the FTSE specifically has been. When I look at these markets, you know, I'm always kind of on the hunt for the FTSE. But it does mean that the pause might just give us an opportunity to start to look for some upside in the coming days and weeks.
All right, I've got 30-minute candles, mate. I better have a look and see what's about.
Check them out.
You also got your Bitcoin up 51.5.
Yes, we'll have a look at Bitcoin in a moment as well, because I was looking at that. So yeah, you have a quick look around the grounds when we get to Bitcoin.
Roger D. Let me pull this back in. Okay, Euro has broken through the resistance, and looking at the horizontal level that we achieved on Friday, which in fact is the highest level since we're mid-March, about the 20th of March. So we've kind of hit this level here. I'm seeing that level as a bounce point, and I'd actually be keen to trade this back to the pivots if I get the opportunity. It doesn't look from this candle like I'm going to on the 4-hour chart, and we are too close to the pivots on the 4-hour chart. So let's put that into context and go back to the 30 and what I need to see. What I'd prefer to see, to be absolutely fair, and I spoke about this line here and this line here earlier, I'd actually prefer to see a third line come into play, and that's this one here, and then break above it, be unable to, or just break through here, doesn't matter. Whether if it took out that high, it kind of adds a little bit of a different complexion to it. But if it doesn't take out that high and then comes back underneath this trend line, retests it, that then gives me tons of room to play with. Versus if we now came back below here and retested, it doesn't give me a lot of room here to play with. So this is definitely the best case scenario if you're thinking of trading this as a retracement back to the pivots, and that's all I'm thinking at the moment. I'm not thinking reversal or anything like that, but I am thinking about a retracement back to the pivots, certainly the daily pivots where I'd take a big chunk off, and I don't know that there's anything to be gained really by going to the others. They're only 10 or 12 pips away, and if you're risking maybe 10 or 15 pips even here to gain 25, that'd be enough for me. I think I'd get out of that position at that point. Of course, there's a lot of water to go under the bridge before it sets up, and if you still think here, that's fine. I don't see any problem with that. That's certainly the momentum trade, but for me, I certainly would want to be trading into these highs. That's certainly not without a daily pivot test. So that's what I've got in my head there, and nothing doing. Aussie's interesting in that it's very similar, because again we've got an untested daily pivot. Again we've got an attempt to break through resistance. That the euro has already done that from a trend line point of view, but there's a fair bit of headwind here for the Aussie as well. This level, the high of the day is one, of course the high of last week and Friday is another. So, and an untested daily pivot it prevents me from going long, is what I'm saying. I can't go long here, so I have to be patient and wait. And this is a far less attractive short for me than is the euro, because of the position we're at. I don't see a nice clean entry that's going to get me any decent reward here. So that's probably not the way I want to go trading the Aussie. And the pound, I've almost ruled it out already today because of the position it's in. It's dead set between resistance and support. It's got absolutely no window of vision for me. I can't see what it wants to do at this point in time. It does not give me any indication as to which way it wants to go. So I think it's best just to leave it alone. Aussie yen, same as the Aussie, same as the euro, looking for resistance to become resistance and play it back to support, which would be the pivot areas. Big chunk off a daily pivot. Maybe you'd want to take this one to the weekly pivot. That would be okay. But again, you're looking for a break of resistance to become false, and that's exactly what I'll be looking for. But until then, guess what? Nothing doing. Same here. Aussie CAD. I guess I've got a definite opinion on this one in terms of where it's headed, and it seems to me in the first instance that we're headed here, but not without retracement to trade, if you understand what I'm saying. I just can't go, all right, we're going here, enter. It doesn't work that way for me. I want some sort of insurance policy that if what I see happens in the first instance from a break point of view is actually going to carry through. And that always comes in a confirmation. If it's a break of a trend line, for instance, I want to see that trend line retested. If it's a break of a horizontal level, I want to see that level retested. I want to see a second signal that tells me something's about to happen. And again, we're in consolidation here. the first level of resistance is currently where we are, which is this former horizontal level. It's not really formed, it's still there. I'm less inclined to think this is going to go short before it goes long, but again, I just can't jump into the market here. I don't see a way in. Do I see a way in long? Not in the near term. I'd have to wait until...
Sorry, Jeff, nobody could see your chart. I've just put it on.
Oh, really? Well, I've been talking for ages too. Sorry. Okay.
You're on now.
Yeah, so going back, just very, very briefly, Euro, I haven't changed my mind on anything. I still want to see a resistance broken and become false, then trade short. Same the Aussie, exactly the same. Cable, not interested in the least. It's totally in no man's land. I've got no idea where it's going. Aussie yen's exactly the same as the Aussie and the Euro. I want to see resistance broken. This resistance, find the second lot of resistance, which is the horizontal level, come back below it, retest it, and then go short to the pivots. Take profit ones here, take profit twos here. That's the clearest picture I've got is Aussie yen. Aussie CAD, I guess, is very, very similar, and I was just talking about this one. We are at a horizontal level, which was, of course, last Thursday's high. This one's tougher, and I think I'd be willing to go long here, but not without a setup. And the setup maybe comes on the hourly. What I would need to see, in fact, what I'd like to see here is this candle come down and test the daily pivot. If that were to be the case, still not going to be good for two reasons. One, the risk I would have to take would be about 14, 15 pips. The first reward I'm going to get, it's not that bad. It's just a little bit below 1-to-1. But I've got to get my entry above this level, and that's the tricky part. I don't want to trade into that. We'll see how that pans out, but that doesn't look as bad as I first thought. Dollar yen, look, there's no trade for me there right now, but really what I do see here is a pretty clear double top, but I don't see a clear lower high yet. Yes, there's a lower high there. Yes, there's a lower high there. But when I talk about lower highs, what I like to see is a retracement on the retracement, if you like. So if this is retracing the bull run, I want to see the bulls come back in, yet fail to take out the highs. And that then tells me that the bears have got a far better chance of driving this market than the bulls, because the bears will see weakness here and they'll jump in. So that's a lower high for me, where we've got the retracement that's begun. We'll get a retracement on the retracement, if you like, or an attempt for the bulls to get back into the market and resume their momentum. And when that fails as a lower high, that's the time I want to go short. But these tiny little retracements on a 30-minute chart mean absolutely nothing. It's just noise. I need to see something a little better than that. So I want the market to get back to here, maybe take this level on, this level, give me the lower high that I want. And if I am to trade short, that would be the time I'd want to trade short. So I just can't jump into the market here. And I think I'm probably still of that mindset. But when I say that, it still hasn't reached the level I anticipated that it might. And that's up here. Yes, we've got a high being challenged and the level's good, but it's not as easy as it first appears, that's for sure. I've got to see this level fail, I think. I think that's probably where I'm at.
You done there, mate?
Sorry, mate.
Did you? Was that your little wrap up?
No, I'm going TikTok here. My brain's stretched. It's Monday. I'm trying to think too hard. No, the double top is getting me here because it's equal to this one. So yeah, a lower high here gets me interested short, but not committed to a big reversal. Just a good retracement, maybe down to the daily, weekly pivot, maybe even down to the monthly. So that's where I'm at the moment with that one. And really everything else is a repeat of of the previous. So yeah, I'm done with that at the moment, mate.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just here checking through some shares here. There was actually seeing there's a few bits and pieces out here that are of interest, but I guess I'm just looking at the general detail within the FTSE. About 57% of stocks are all in positive territory right now. So I was just seeing if there was any specific single buying opportunities, and I don't quite see them. There's a couple of shares that I would have been interested in that have already started to ease back up again, but they haven't come back sufficiently enough. I can tell you that the market breadth is around about 50. Let me just check it after the first 15 minutes here. It's about 50-50, maybe slightly in favour of the bulls here on the on the market breadth. So FTSE is probably a bit early to be calling for downside. But the other thing that I was looking at actually last week, which I thought had probably now been forgotten because I was treating this as a double top, but maybe if I squint a little, I could still see this as a head and shoulders pattern. The right shoulder is a bit high up here, but possibly, you know, that could be looked at. Before Friday had happened, I was looking at this area here being a potential right shoulder, but now with that price up there, we might be looking more of a double top. If the head and shoulders pattern is in play, a close under this weekly pivot. I'm going to blow this chart up a little bit so you can see. There's the weekly pivot. A close under this weekly pivot after the first hour would suggest that we're probably going to be dragging down here, regardless of whether this is the pattern or not. There's still this lower trend line down here. So the measured move again, you know, backing up what we were looking at earlier on with the ascending triangle pattern, would also see us down to around about the 72 level. So still kind of points down here, which is, you know, it kind of makes the head and shoulders pattern look a bit more attractive just because of the measured move, but no guarantees there. 15-minute chart has just put in a lower high. It has closed under the weekly pivot. It needs to remain under there in the next 15 minutes. It looks more likely because of the time frames that these are happening on, where we're getting the first bar, second bar lower, third bar testing the areas where it's pretty much come from, and then the fourth bar starting to drag to the downside. That's going to promote some further downside potentially with the FTSE, but it might be that we mess around in the area before Wednesday. I'm probably going to be a little bit down to what the US session decides, but it appears at this stage that we are looking at a weaker market. It's just down to how significant and how weak this could get to is going to be the key aspect of that. So we're really sitting on the sidelines, and I guess that's what it is for you as well, mate. What you're looking at is that we're just effectively just sitting and waiting, right?
Yeah, look, as sad as that may be, you know, we're traders and we like to trade, but if there's nothing there, there's nothing there.
No, I mean, I don't know if anybody else is looking at anything.
Christo is. He's waiting for Kim Jong-un to press the red button again.
Yeah.
And look, I'm with you, mate. I thought that that was a complete farce, that first, what did they call it, summit?
Yeah.
Trumpy and Kim Jong-un, where they said also, well, no, sorry, they didn't say. Trump said everything went well, and you know he sees my way, and blah 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 blah. Bullshit.
Yeah.
It's absolute garbage. It's spin that that he's come out with there, and same with Xi Jinping. I think was the same story.
Yeah.
I don't think there's any agreement to come to in any way, shape, or form. He just
yeah, I've just had a listen into that actually, and it seems that one of the stipulations that the Chinese had put on America was that they would have to effectively put it down in law that they wouldn't be changing from their position, with the trade wars, that they would reach a deal and then that deal would be ratified legally, and the US appear to be okay with doing that, so certainly the reports that are coming out and the news that is coming out is still for a positive discussion and positive resolution to the trade dispute. But as you say, nothing has been finalized as yet, so we're really still waiting on that to happen. And there certainly appears to be every chance that would happen, but as yet nothing has been finalized. Just noticed another little trend line here on the FTSE.
And
yes.
As far as Christo, as far as he can't fire Powell, I don't think there's anything he can't do with it. It doesn't matter what agreements appear to be in place or contracts appear to be in place or whatever. He just does what he wants to do at the end of the day.
Yeah,
I may be wrong there, of course. I'm speaking entirely off the top of my head, but I wouldn't be surprised at any stage what he did in terms of going against tradition or law, even. He doesn't have a very high opinion of most lawyers or judges. That's a fact. So I don't know. He's dodged impeachment that many times. He's a legend. He really is a legend.
Yeah,
he's as good as Tiger Woods.
Oh well, yeah. Do you know what? After you were saying about watching the back nine, I decided to watch it, and it was absolutely brilliant.
Yeah, it's amazing, isn't it?
Yeah, what a story that is.
Yeah, absolutely, what a story. What an incredible human being he is. Wow. And it's not that long ago where he was that I suppose it's infamous picture of him trying to walk a straight line with the policeman ready to arrest him, and I think they did arrest him because he was on some sort of, I don't know, prescribed drug for his back condition or whatever.
Yeah.
Went as far as I can't play golf again, etc., etc.
Yeah.
Ugly divorces, all those sorts of things.
Yeah.
I mean, we all go through those day in, day out. That's nothing really compared to the physical issues that he's had. But yeah, to come back after all that time and to show just how foreboding a presence he is on a golf course, but because he causes those guys to make mistakes.
Yeah,
just his presence.
Yeah,
he comes tight. It's unbelievable.
Well, do you know, the thing I found most impressive about that was not so much that he caused the guys to make mistakes, but the fact that he didn't make one himself. He's not won a major for a long time, so his mental state has probably been in question, for a long time. But he managed to almost be back to old, where he just kept cool, kept patient, made the right decision, didn't push at it, and just hit the golf ball beautifully, because he just didn't tighten up. So actually, mentally, he must be in a pretty strong place. As to not, because those last two, he could have been in a playoff, couldn't he? At the end of it,
sure.
Those last two shots,
he really wasn't going to lose. There's no question there. But a mere mortal may well have. Yes.
Yeah. Well, Molinari was that mere mortal, wasn't he?
Oh yeah, and he's had such a stellar 18 months.
Really?
Molinari.
Yeah.
Won everything. Just faultless. But he hasn't been in the last group with Tiger Woods.
Yeah. Well, it certainly it seemed like the people's choice. I certainly wanted him to win. I don't know too much about Tiger Woods and his life. Aside from the headlines, I suppose I've never really read too much on any genuine reporting from him. But yeah, so just a kind of a wonderful story when you get an old stalwart of any sport kind of coming back and doing that, except for boxing maybe. I never really agree with it when old boxers get back in the ring, but when it comes down, when there was, sorry,
I'm not sure how they call that a sport, frankly.
Yeah, yeah. I know. Well, it's so brutal that that
I'm gonna
any
knock your head off. Bloody
yeah, I mean,
arsehole. I'm not
any
sensible.
guys that are kind of getting in the ring when they've been out of the ring for a specific amount of time, I think should be stopped. I don't think they should allow that. Boxing really is a young man's game. I don't know. I understand that people are good at what they're good at and they just want to do what they're good at, but there's certain things that I think are pretty above that.
Agreed. Absolutely.
Now, the only chart that I have got anything on is the pound Kiwi. And the pound Kiwi does look to be shaping up for some downside. It's not particularly crystal clear, but let me bring this in. Oh, are you a Game of Thrones fan by any chance, Jeff?
Yeah, mate, I'm up to speed. I watched
Are
the
you?
first
Oh, you
episode.
see, I've never seen it, Game of Thrones, but a friend of mine was explaining it to me over the weekend, and I was getting really excited. But it starts again today, doesn't it?
Yeah, I've already watched it. Yeah,
Oh, was it
done.
good?
Yeah, well, to be fair, I slept through half of it. I've got to watch it again.
Sounds amazing.
That doesn't mean it was bad. It
Right,
means I was tired.
right. Um, yeah, so pound Kiwi. Now I like this one. Now I am looking for downside, and I like the fact that we've broken under both the daily and the weekly pivot. Great area of confluence, and there seems to be quite a few areas of confluence here as well, which could shove this to the downside. Looks like a little trend line there. And if that got tested and then rejected under the weekly and daily pivot again, I would be looking for some downside with this. Now, let me just bring this up on a different chart, make sure I'm seeing what I need to see. Yes. Yeah, I think anywhere in this zone, anywhere from where we are now to somewhere at about here, this horizontal level along here, then I'd be quite keen on calling this one lower. Let me just double check this. Yeah, so that's going to miss. I suppose the trend line starts to become a lot more attractive now, actually. So, well, somewhere around about the 1.9370 looks like a decent sell order with a pound against the Kiwi. Not really sure what it is with the Kiwi right now, but it seems to be a fairly popular currency. The pound has had its moment in the sun, I would suggest, after the Brexit announcement, and it hasn't really kind of helped it out. We are not really expanding to the upside by any stretch. Want to wait this hourly bar to close. Just wait this one out to close and see what happens, and then see if it rejects this area. But this would be I guess my chart of the day would be the pound Kiwi to the downside. I don't know what your thoughts on that are, mate.
Yeah, I've never had a power Kiwi chart on my screen. I don't think, but I have right now. And what I'm going to do, I can absolutely see a box here. There's no question in my mind. There's a box, and there's a box on the outside of the box, I think. So let me show you.
Yeah.
Christo, who is Amir Khan? I assume he's a boxer.
Yeah, he's a British boxer.
British boxer, okay. And
he's a young guy though. I mean, he's
back in the ring.
Yeah, I think he. I don't know too much about his career, but I know he was an Olympic gold medalist, and he made the jump to going into the professional world, and I think he did pretty well for a while. I think he was champion possibly, but his career hit the rails from memory, and I think he's maybe coming back now.
Okay. Shows you how much I follow the sport. Since the days of Ali, I'm afraid I haven't followed boxing at all.
Oh yeah, that man was a completely different kettle of fish, wasn't he?
Certainly was. Okay, I can see downside here, mate. That's for sure. But then I look at the smaller time frames, and I see another rectangle, which is kind of in here, I think. Nice spot. Were you looking for something off the pivots, mate, or were you looking for something?
I think the upper trend line would be better. So there's a little trend line up there. That one, yeah. I think that would be better.
Yeah, look, later in the day, I can totally see a nice little break here, back underneath, retest the confluence. That'll get us back inside this one. Yeah, I can go with that. Why not? There's probably another little confluence area that may develop as well, up through here. So that looks like a choice little area to trade from to me.
It does, doesn't it? And I think that the upper line just looks a bit safer to me. The problem with the weekly pivot and daily pivot, to my mind, is when I look at price, there's only really that. I guess you could call it a shooting star, but because of where it is, the high test bar, because of the high test bar, that's the only thing it's going to bounce away from. And I don't really like it when it's only one bar to bounce away from, unless we see something really positive. Because you're right, that is in a box. So it's almost like a small, hourly trend that has started within that particular period that's just too short. So yeah, I think I'd want to wait for that trend line.
You can even put another box around this. That's so much a consolidating pair.
It really is, isn't it?
Yeah, or ranging pair. Let's put it that way. There's another one in here. Maybe there somewhere.
Yeah,
which makes that area very interesting. Trey, interesting, mate. Yeah, I'd like to see what happens at that trend line. That is going to be an area of definite interest. If we don't get there in the first instance and come back to here, maybe that's an attractive trade even. Because what that would then do, it would give you a higher low. And maybe even on the 4-hour chart, a higher low here looks interesting. Reversal bar, back into the range, retest the bottom of it. You could trade it up to there, then look for the short if you wanted to, I think. On the smaller time frames I'm talking.
Yeah.
So that might be interesting. Back to here, then up there.
Yeah, a bit of waiting on this one, but it looks okay, doesn't it?
Yeah, look, no argument, but it is a bit rangy. You got to be, your timing's everything here, I think. Nothing unusual there, of course.
Yeah. I think so. Well, I suppose it's another reason that I think that that trend line looks a bit more attractive, because I think that would probably allow a little bit more room for error than the pivots.
Yep. Again, if it's got a pound in it, I'm just not switched on to it at the moment.
Yeah, I know what you mean.
I'm just reading Christo's comments.
Yeah, no worries.
Sounds like you know a lot about it, Christo. The boxing game, that is. Your names there, I don't even recognise, unfortunately. So I pretty much can't comment.
Well, I think we can probably wrap it up here anyway, mate. The FTSE 100 looks at this particular stage. We're about a minute to go before we get the close. It looks like it's probably going to rest along this trend line by the top of the hour. Definitely, the fact that it's under this this weekly pivot is a bit damning. I think it's a bit of a damning result, and it would suggest that there's probably some easing further to the downside for the day. Not looking too likely to plummet to the upside when you have a Monday morning that doesn't have a great deal of news really left in it. We've had PPI month over month on the Swissy, which came out pretty good. Rightmove HPI from the pound, which looks like it was overnight, came out fairly decent as well. But apart from the BOC Business Outlook survey from Canada, there's not really a great deal. Maybe the Fed speaker later on could drive a little bit. Australian monetary policy minutes tomorrow. Average earnings index is going to be interesting for the pound. And if Brexit is forgotten about, then that might just start to see the other numbers and data points start to filter in to sentiment with the with the market and with the pound. So might start to see some movement tomorrow. We got CPI quarter on quarter from New Zealand tomorrow as well. So if this pound Kiwi does shape up, those two data points going in opposite directions could really help this currency pair out. And then from there on in, it's really about Wednesday. GDP quarter on, year on quarter. Is it Q and Y?
Quarter on year.
Quarter on year from GDP. Yeah. So they are looking for an easing, 6.3 from the previous 6.4. So maybe that little bit of weakness could shape things up a little bit. But it certainly looks like Wednesday to me, doesn't it, mate? And as you say, the OPEC meetings all day on Wednesday as well could be a bit of a market mover. So we'll be back tomorrow, but I'm guessing that it may well be the same tomorrow as it is today. Possibly not with a pound. Might be something with a pound with those data points.
If these resistance levels hold and we actually get back underneath them, then I'll be okay. But until that's the case, there's nothing for me to do.
Yeah. Okay, mate. Okay.
The session gone without too much trading being done, I've got to say, but it's not there. It's not there. Simple as that. And we're back again when in a couple of hours.
Yes, we are actually. Yeah. Back on the free show in a couple of hours' time.
Chit chat show. Okay.
Yes,
okay.
Bit of chit chat. Yes.
Thanks, Christo. I'm not sure I'll get to watch those on YouTube, but you just never know. Thanks for the input.
Yeah. Thanks for being involved, guys. We'll be back again tomorrow, same trade time, same trade channel. We'll do it all again to see if we can find something. It's really not about finding something. It's just about the markets being a bit kinder to us. But at this stage, they're not really playing ball with what we want to do. So we just got to wait.
True story. You bet, you sweet little bippy. See you later.
All right, buddy. See you later. See you in a couple of hours. See you guys.
Hooroo.